Okay, everybody, we're here. Finally, this is the moment that I've said was going to be in the very next stream for like 3 streams now, and now we are actually there, which is we're going to rearrange a bunch of these components on the board. Again, I don't know how interesting this will be for people, but I just want to show like what actually is involved with creating something as small as a little teeny printed circuit board like that. It's just a couple inches by a couple inches. And so a couple things I want to mention that I've done that I'm not going to show here. I calculated, KiCad has this thing where the origin is way up here off the corner of the schematic, not the schematic, the PCB layout, which is really weird. And there really is no good way to set the origin somewhere else. And the reason that that's important is because if you, as I move the mouse around down here at the bottom, I don't know how well you can see it, it shows you an X and Y coordinate. And so when, like in my case, I've just drawn the board in this random spot on the sheet. I could have drawn it over here or up here in this corner. Some people, to get around this issue in KiCad, actually draw it up here off the paper. But then if you want to print it, it's not going to print out. Like it'll print it, like it's going to cut your paper off right here. So what I did, and I found out and I learned, is you can press the space bar anywhere you have the cursor and it will reset this dx dy to 0, 0. So it essentially creates a local origin, if you will. And so I've calculated the very middle of my board to be 179.375 millimeters X coordinate, and the Y coordinate is 64.95 millimeters. So it's like right around in here. And I went into there, I pushed spacebar, and that reset my dx dy to 0. And now I know where I am in relation to the center of the board. Now, this is really only important for 2 components on my board, and that's the connector, which I want to be perfectly centered, and the USB connector, because that has to be perfectly centered so that it will pop right out of the middle of the case like that. And so I need those to be perfectly centered. And the way to do that is to press spacebar, find the origin. And now if I come over here, and every component, if you can see here, has this little blue crosshairs that you probably can't see it. But if I do that on my USB connector, you can see that my DY down below, it's actually right, let's see, right here. It's got dx dy. The dy you can see is all zeros there. And so that means that that part is completely centered. Now, it's important to note that only works if the center point of the footprint is the actual center point, which in this case it is. You can see it falls right in between these two. But sometimes, especially if you have somebody else's part that they've created, they might not have centered it. The center point might be, or the origin, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say the center point. The origin might be up in the corner, in which case you can't really use it to center that way. And so I did the same thing over here on this footprint. You can see, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see the blue crosshairs, but it's right there. And you can see my DY again, right over here is 0. So that is completely centered. So I moved those parts so they're nice and centered up and down on the board. And then I also moved the connector here that we've got, which by the way is looking beautiful. I'm so happy with how that turned out. It's perfect. I had to move it back from the edge of the board because the cable comes out of that and has to bend around and come up for the displayed amount. And so you can't have that right on the edge of the board, because then it's not going to fit in the case right, and the cable's going to bump into the case. And so this is exactly where it needs to be, and the USB connector is exactly where it needs to be. Every other component that you see on here is fair game for moving however we'd like. And so that's what we're going to do now. So I'd like to get to a point on the streams, it's early on, nobody's watching, I get it, where I do these on a more fixed schedule. And maybe if you've got some feedback, I'd love to hear it. Like, when would be a good time to do these? Because I'd also love to answer anybody's questions about any of this. If you have questions about your project, like, one of the reasons I'm doing this is to help show other people how you can do this. Like, it looks intimidating, but it's really not too bad. And if you know just a few things, like, you can really get through it and do it and have a lot of fun doing this stuff. And so I'd love to, answer questions as I'm able. Like I said, I'm not an expert at PCB layout, but I think we'll get through well enough to make this work and work well. And so I'm happy to answer questions, whether it's about this or your other projects. I've got a ton of IoT experience and love helping people. So as people end up joining the stream as we go, that would be awesome. Would love to help answer questions. So again, really quickly, what we're going to do, we're going to move all the power circuitry up here, down to here, and we're going to move all of the input communication components up here. Probably end up sliding this over a little bit. We'll see where we end up, but we're gonna swap these two things. And so what I'm gonna try and do is, well, R6 and R7. Well, we're gonna leave them there for now. While you're doing this, it's very helpful to have the rat's nest turned on. So let's turn that back on. Big mess of wires. And so what I'm going to try and do is just select. I think the problem with this is it's going to select. Like if I do that and then I do move. Oh, look at that. It is going to just take everything that I need. Okay, great. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to do that again. Let's grab everything that's up here. We don't need the switch. And so once you've selected a large bunch of them, I don't need these resistors. I think you can just do shift click and to unselect components and then to also select. So I'm going to unselect those. I need to take this guy with me. I need to take these two. And then all of this stuff right here is for the USB. It needs to be right. It should be. It doesn't need to be. I don't know, but it should. It works well right here because it connects right to the USB input there. I'm gonna grab L1 here, and this. The switch can stay, and I'm not sure if this is the switch. This is the switch. No, this is not the switch. I need this guy. Yeah, F1, that's the fuse. I can leave the switch. The thermistor I'll take. I need this guy up here. No, not that. Oh, don't just give me the, there we go, C7. I think that's everything for now. So that's, we've got everything highlighted. I'm gonna have to move that JST connector as well. All right, I think that's everything. So now once everything's selected, you can just press M and it's gonna take the entire group. Oh, I still have R14 selected. We'll just put R14 back. I don't wanna unselect everything now. I'm gonna pull all of it over here and just kind of like plop it right there. I'll take R14 and nope. Let's click out and escape. I'll take R14 and put it back up here for now. I don't think that's where I'm gonna ultimately leave them. In fact, I'm gonna move all these up. These are JTAG resistors. And so I don't like how the JTAG pins are not right next to each other on the ESP32 module. It'd be better if they were. Well, it'd be better for layout. So I think I'm going to put these over by the tag connect because that's where all of them end up connecting, and then I'll just run traces from all the pins. So I think that's, so that is all the power stuff. I'm actually going to grab this too, and I think we're going to move it to the other side. Let's pull the switches off for now. I mean, I want them to be in that sort of general area, but let's just set them aside. Okay, and now this stuff down here. So these capacitors, C13 and 14, and C12 and R12. If we go back to the schematic view, C12 and R12 are right there on the enable pin. So we'll want those to be right close to the ESP32, and then C13 and 14 also. So those four components we want to be right next to. So C12, R12, and C13, 14. Yeah, so we want to leave these here. and then we'll get rid of, we're going to take all of these and we're going to move them up top. Okay, so cool. Let's grab those. And oh man, we're going to have so much room up here if we can fit all this power circuitry down there. I'm just going to plop it right there for now. I think if you remember, I want to put headers up here. So a header there and a header here, probably 2 of them to get the rest of the open pins. I think I decided there were like 18 header pins that I would need. And so, man, I'm going to have all kinds of room over here. Oh, this will be good. It might be real. I don't know. I'm looking at this much stuff, trying to fit it in this much space. That might be a stretch. Okay, well, let's see if we can make it work. So R15 again is a JTAG. Oops, got to cancel out so you don't move the previous stuff. R15 is another JTAG resistor, so I'm gonna just throw it up here with the other JTAG resistors. There's 4 of them, right? 4 of them. Let's verify that. Yep, right there. You can see them. 1, 2, 3, 4. R13, 14, 15, and 16. Okay, so. Let's see. These, let's come in and get these situated. So this is where there's probably some good guidance on how to do these with as little room as possible. And I'm actually thinking, what's really cool is it'll show you this pad needs to be connected to 3.3 volts, this needs to be 3.3 volts, and these both need to be ground. Now, remember, everywhere that we're doing ground, we don't really need to worry about aligning these so that they're near a ground point, because ground plane is going to be everywhere. We're going to fill the entire board with ground plane. So ground is going to be our last connection on every single component, and it's going to be super, I don't want to say super easy. Once we figure out how to do it, I've never done pours in KiCad. It should be trivial to throw all of these pads down. So what I'm not sure about is, for example, I've got these 2 next to each other, and I could put them like right here and right here. And then they're both right there to 3.3 volts. Or I could do something like this, where I put the 3.3 right there, right next to it, as well as this one. Now, I'm sorry, I need to rotate that more. I can put this one right here, and now very easy to connect all these right there. But what I'm just now realizing, so here's something to think about. I don't know that I can move the ESP32 any more to the left. As you can see, like my row of capacitors over here is already pretty tight to the connector. I'm actually probably gonna have to slide them more to the right, which means I think I'll be okay to just move these all over and leave the ESP32 module where it's at. But I don't think I can move it any more over unless I moved everything. All of these capacitors, like, took the whole thing wholesale, flipped it so that they were horizontal across the board, and laid them up here. And then I'm gonna have a lot of traces, because a lot of these pins, you'll see, like, this goes to VDD, which is right there. I want to just be able to draw a trace right to there. VPP, I want to draw a trace right to here. VSH right to there. Like, I want these to be as close to the connector as possible, so I don't have traces everywhere. The trace length should be really short. So. But it would be nice to move this over to the left to get more of this stuff in. What I'm thinking, what I'm thinking here is, if I tighten these things up really close to where I want them in relation to the ESP32, I might get into a situation where I need to move the ESP32, and then I got to move all these as well. So there's some thought that needs to go into this, but or you're going to have to rework it. So let's see. This needs to connect to the enable pin, which is where? Oh, it's right here. Okay, so we could do a similar thing here. Watch this. We're going to grab R12, flip him this way. Okay, so now check this out. Let's flip these. Let's move this guy right close, which means we can now move this guy down into here. And put him like that. Now I can draw my trace to enable really easily, and 3.3 volts, those are really close, and then I can pull this one down and put him like right here. Maybe even down a little bit, because I've got this other one up here. This C12, let's pull him down as well. That goes to enable and ground. So I don't know, something like that should work. Make those connections really easy. Keeps that pretty tight. So that gives us some pretty decent room around here. So all this stuff is flipped. And I also wanted to perhaps put this down here as well. This is going to be tight, guys. I don't know if this is going to work. And we're going to have loads of space up here. So there's a couple of things to think about here now that I'm thinking about it, because we've got. I was thinking that space was going to be more. These components right here are not going to take up a lot of space. And in fact, I think one of these wants to connect. Yeah, this wants to connect to the enable pad. We could do a split. Like, we need 3.3 volts to be down here, and that is created either from the battery or from the charge circuitry. So looking over here, 3.3 volts ends up coming out of this chip right here. So we want this for sure to be down here. It's possible that we could put the charge management chip up and run its, so keep everything related to charge management. Let's take a look at the schematic. In the power block here. You can see that we sort of have two things going on here. We have the charge management IC, which generates an out. And this out is either from the battery right here, or it's from the USB, which comes in as 5 volts right here. And so this chip decides, hey, I'm going to charge the battery with the USB, or I'm going to take the battery and pipe it out. And then that out, charge out right here, comes into a linear voltage regulator and pumps out 3.3 volts. It creates a nice, clean 3.3 volts. So we sort of have these two pieces. And what we could do is put all this charge management stuff up top where it was before and run the charge out line just down to the linear voltage regulator and have it pop out into the chip. Just think about that. Okay. Well, let's work backwards and see what we have room for. I think that sounds like a good approach. So let's grab. Let's see which. This is C6. Where's C6? Let's grab C8, 9, 10, and 11. And the linear voltage regulator. Let's start with that. C8 through 11. Okay. So I believe this is C8. Yeah, C8. Oops. 9, 10, 11, and the linear voltage regulator. And let's get those in here, because these are what are going to have to create that 3.3 volt. And man, let's just push it right up into there. That looks pretty good. The 3.3 volt comes right out of there. These are the kind of filter capacitors. Oops. On the outsides. We can move this just a little bit. One thing to consider, although it should not influence your positioning at all, is all this, I don't know what color you want to call this, blue or teal, all this stuff is the silk screen, so it will print out on the board and you're never going to be able to see it on here. But on this board here, let's see if I can get it really close. All the white text, oh, come on, focus. Every component is marked. That helps when you're looking at it and trying to diagnose things. And so what we'll do is we'll come back through and we'll move all of these silkscreen identifiers, resize them, and place them near the components. So when we look at it on the actual PCB, we know, hey, this is C10, this is C11, whatever. So they get real jumbled, as you can see here, but we can mess with that later. I'm going to turn this guy sideways. Just like that. So that's going to give us our 3.3 volts to power. Why do we have charge out and charge out, 1 and 3? Are those really connected? That seems weird. 1 and 3 are connected together. Oh, one of them's a chip enable. So pin 3 is a chip enable, which we want to always be pulled. Okay. Wait, which one was chip enable? 3. 3 is the chip enable. So this one is the chip enable. So we could just actually run a trace right under the chip here that connects these together. I wonder how they did that on... I've got the PCB layout from the original. Fab notes, no. PC Gerbers. Oh, come on, there's a PDF around here somewhere. Gerber's drawings. There we go. Okay, so I'll just drag it over here. I have the original here, and it's this component right here. So I guess I could just control plus. Yeah, okay, so they connected it like this and created a ground plane all underneath of it. I wonder if that's better for like heat dissipation. I bet that's why they did it that way. Okay, so that's interesting. So I'm glad I looked at this because hopefully you can see this right above my head, straight up here. The pink trace. Pins 1 and 3 on that regulator need to be connected together. What I wanted to do was run a trace from here right through. You can run traces underneath components. They're solder masked over, so they're not like open connections that can cause any problems. And you'll see that sometimes. Let me show you an example somewhere else on here. I know there is one. Okay, right here. This red trace goes under the pads of this capacitor. These two pads right here are a single capacitor. So that capacitor lays across this trace. So you can do some stuff like that when we get a trace layout. It's really cool. So what I was going to do is lay the trace underneath, but they filled everything underneath with a ground plane. And I think a reason for doing that is to help with thermal dissipation, because this is one of the things that's going to get warm and it's not going to get really warm, but it's going to be one of the warmer components. And so that's something to think about. Pull this back over. Instead of running this under, running it outside here. And so maybe what I should do is put this over here. We need 2 resistors, C8 and 9, on charge out. That's on the... it's on this pin 1, though. C8 and 9 are coming from charge out into the voltage. I think we want those closer to the voltage regulator. So something like maybe this and this. That's getting really tight. Take this and move it just a little bit this way. Oops. Okay. Okay. Why are we looking on space? Yeah, so now we've got to squeeze everything that you see here into all this space over here. That's going to be tight. It'd be better if we could pull these underneath. An option would be to rotate this. Rotate this like this, where the 3.3 volt is on the high side. Yeah, net 4 is a no connect. Let's work with this for a second. So this is something, again, as you're going through, it's kind of like a puzzle where you're moving things around and like maybe the pieces would fit better this way and better. Because what this allows me to do now is I can grab these and place them down here like this. And now that does free up some space. Do something like that. It's getting real close to that edge. In fact, that might be too close to the edge. So let's flip them. Yep, that's what we gotta do. We gotta flip them. Because this one's a lot smaller. Grab this one. Move it like this. Because we want the charge out. We're gonna come out of charge out here, come straight across, go to that. Ground we could probably get to just around here somewhere. And then we'll take this one and do the same thing. Charge out like that. Now, let's move it even further. Why don't we do something like this? Put this one over here. Because I'm playing too much with ground. Just like that. Come out of charge out here, connect that to there, and then this connects to here. That should do it. Okay, I like that. Then we still keep our really nice, clean 3.3 line right out of the linear regulator. Okay, cool. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the stream because this could go on forever. And I have noticed, unfortunately, that with my hardware, when I get too long into the streams, the audio and my video get off for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just my encoding stuff can't keep up with it, but I think you've had a good idea as we've gone through and we're laying stuff out. And again, it's like a puzzle. You know, this stuff's now starting to come in really tight to here. I might even be too tight. I might need to pull some of this stuff further out, but we're getting in there, and I'm going to keep working at squeezing all of that power stuff into this bottom corner, leave the USB stuff up top. And what I'll do next time is I'll show you where I ended up, how far I made it, and kind of talk about, I'll give like a retrospective, like what are the things that were working well, not working well, and where we ended up. So that's going to do it for the stream today. Again, this stuff takes time, but it really is just like a puzzle. You just got to keep at it, try different things, try different combinations, move things around, see how things fit together. And it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun as it comes together and you get this layout, and then you have sort of this, you know, unique piece of art at the end, which is kind of cool. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Join me next time. We'll go over it, and we'll hopefully start getting into laying down traces very soon so we can get one of these things fab. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.